Hi, I'm Mark from Samaritan's Well Counseling. Have you ever had questions about what's most important in preparing for marriage? Well, today we're going to cover some of those topics. There's a lot of vital things that we have to look at in preparing for marriage. One of the most important is, do I have resolution from my previous relationship? Maybe it was a divorce. Maybe it was a long relationship, but is there resolution there? So what does that look like? Well, just to start with, one of the classic ways that we look at going from one relationship to another is, let's say you've been married for 8 years and it ended in divorce. Something happened, there was adultery or some kind of betrayal, or who knows, maybe even you might be a widower or widower. But either way that you lost that relationship, the classic idea is to take 1 month for every year of that relationship to grieve and to wait until you go into another relationship. Now, what do you need to be doing during that time? Part of it, of course, is grieving. When we talk about grieving, you've got this loss, and it could be a series of losses before the big loss of this previous relationship. And you're going to have to go back and be reminded of it so that you can grieve. You'll have the primary emotion that hits you when you first think about this loss, when you first think about this grief. And then you'll have the time for cognitive evaluation, where the default is either to go, oh, this is the worst thing in the world, I'll never get over it. We call it maximizing. Or, of course, the opposite is minimizing. Oh, that's not a big deal. It's been a month or 2 or 6 months or a year or whatever. I'm fine. I don't need to cry anymore. But that middle ground is where you need to find that place of grieving. And part of the grieving is not just letting the tears out, but you have to get to the anger too. And so what happens with the anger? You're going to have to work through forgiveness. Don't start preparing for marriage until you've totally forgiven that person from the previous relationship. Now, what's a second primary thing that I look at if somebody's preparing for marriage, if they come in for counseling? How's your relationship with your parent of the opposite sex? Now, that may have thrown you off for a second. Maybe it didn't. But I promise you, this is so vital. If you're a woman watching this and you have issues that are unresolved with your dad, you're embittered with him, I'll never marry a man like him, whatever it might be, you need to get some counseling or some help to get some freedom from that, so you'll have freedom to go into this relationship with this new person. And so part of being ready for marriage is having some resolution of that opposite sex parent. So obviously for women, it's your dads. For men, it's your moms. That is really vital. And I've worked with people over and over on that issue. We could spend a long time talking about that, but I just want to bring that up, that is really key. Now, a third thing that I want you to prepare for in getting ready for marriage is you have to be able to self-soothe. Now, what does that mean? It means when you get upset, you have to take responsibility that you're going to get in a better place, and you're not just dependent on this other person, that they have to change, that they have to apologize, that they have to fix you. On David's worst day of his life, he and his fighting men come home to their city they were staying in and with the Philistines, and their women and their children have been kidnapped and taken captive. They don't know what's happened. There's a mutiny being rumored about. And it says on that worst day, David encouraged himself in the Lord. It's vital that you know how to self-soothe going into marriage. And if that's a difficult thing for you, get some help with that. We want you to be able to calm yourself down, take responsibility, even if you're upset. That's a vital thing that I'll teach my couples when I'm working with them. We have to be able to get to that place. So that's vital in preparing for marriage. Now, another thing in preparing for marriage that, of course, as a counselor, I'm going to encourage you to do is premarital counseling. Many churches have great programs when you get to that point of going through issues like your relationships with your in-laws, going through finances, going through expectations. What are the expectations for children, for family, for the future, in the financial area, in the church area, in travel and home, and what are we going to do at home? All of these things we want to cover in premarital counseling. And of course, you can get it at a marriage counseling place like ours, or you can get it at churches, have some great programs. And there's some great programs called Prepare Enrich, the SYMBIS program. There's many good programs for that. One other piece that I want to mention about preparing for marriage is something from the relationship attachment model. And in the relationship attachment model, there is a understanding that we're working on one step of the relationship before we move to the next. So what's the first step we're working on? Knowing each other or forming that friendship. As we know each other better and better, we're moving towards trust. Then as we build trust, the third step is reliance. We begin to have some reliance on each other. The fourth step is commitment. Now we may be moving towards engagement or preparing for marriage, etc. And somewhere in there, touch comes. But you know the problem with so many relationships is we get heavy on touch before we work on knowing and trusting and relying and committing. So having that order is so important. And having accountability and community is so important for helping with that commitment to keep things in order. So I hope this overview has helped you some in understanding what I see as some of the key things to prepare for marriage. If you enjoyed this podcast, please do us a favor and like, subscribe, and share with others who might need it. And you can find additional resources at SamaritansWell.com.